the history of the combined history of Portugal and Mozambique. I had a boat with the decompression chamber inside, which is like a big luxury because you have to go to the archives, spend past. I'm still using them, but I use a lot of things from the past. So yes, I can.
That's all from my side.
Lovely. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we have another Q&A, answer our community, the questions that has been sent to us. So let's dive into it. We already made a first episode about the questions that the community asked us from different ways, and some of the questions were left unanswered. We spared them for a second video because it was too long. Well, we have been accumulating more questions, but we hope in this video we can answer at least the first ones that we had when we made the first one, right?
Totally. The first bunch, because we didn't have time to get into all the questions that you guys asked, and it would be an endless video. And yeah, we've decided to put them all together in this episode. And I think that's something that we will do often enough in the channel if you guys have any questions. So if anything else is left unanswered from this video, feel free to leave it in the comment section or write us on Facebook or Instagram, or personally if you have my dad's phone number or mine. We definitely will gather all together and make sure that we can answer your pressing queries.
Okay, great. Let's start. I will try to answer the best of my capability.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Our first question is, the last wreck, referring to the Subang wreck, is still underwater pending to be excavated, even if we know that it's quite valuable. Why?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, the wreck is valuable, and as far as I know, it hasn't been excavated. But here we have to have a couple of things in mind. The decision to excavate the wreck is made by many aspects. It's a big group of questions you have to answer before deciding if you will excavate the wreck or not. Normally, and in the case of the Subang as well, governments give two types of licenses: survey license and excavation license. I think I mentioned that in a previous episode. And we got the license to survey, for the wreck, to survey, to try to locate the wreck and to produce an archaeological assessment of the site. So explore it, take some samples. That license included the possibility of recovering some samples for study, for typology and for the research in general, but it was not an excavation license. Then, based on the report that I produced, the government has to make a decision if to excavate a wreck or not, or leave it there, or wait for the right moment. Problem is that within the things you have to consider if to excavate a wreck or not, for instance, you have the depth. This wreck is deep to the standards of shipwrecks in reefs. So this wreck is about 56 meters, which is quite deep. That means that it's much more expensive to excavate because the diving is shorter, the amount of diver is bigger. There is a lot of porcelain in the wreck. I mean, the amount of porcelain, and to be excavated properly, it will take a long time. So imagine a high expense over a very long time. I understand that the Indonesian government thinks twice or three times before taking the decision of, are we putting a budget in this? Are we investing in this excavation? Could it wait for a better moment? So I think those are the reasons why, to the best of my knowledge, no excavation permit has been granted to any institution or any group or any foundation or anyone, because it is not an easy decision to make. And I think that they have been careful in this one, it is important. As I mentioned in the episodes, the porcelain is not really outstanding, the porcelain itself, but the potential study of the size and the type of the ship that was transporting such an amount, it is important. So I think they are being careful with it. They haven't given a license for excavation to anyone. So that's the reason why, even if we know that it's such an important wreck, it's still down there.
So our next question, when will you post a video on the San Jose? That's also a question for me because I've been hearing about the San Jose since our first episode.
And it's a fair question. I have mentioned the San Jose many times in different episodes, and every time I said I will make a video on the San Jose. Okay, I don't know when I will make a video on the San Jose. And the reasons are, first, it's a wreck I like a lot. I really like it. It's a very important wreck for me. It's a very important wreck for the history of the combined history of Portugal and Mozambique. There are plenty of beautiful finds and information to share, so I don't want to make a rush video. I want to make it properly. And we are in the middle of many things. Now we are mid-February, when we are shooting this mid-February, and we are about to leave, both of us, to different projects and expeditions and stuff. So I don't have now the mindset to sit and make the video I want to make about the San Jose. But don't worry, I will make it as soon as I can. It will be a beautiful video.
Great. I can't wait for that, to be honest. Next question. What kind of medical kit is it advisable to take on an expedition?
Well, okay, I'm not a doctor. I have the minimal training in first aid and obviously sickness related to the diving. But I would say every expedition, it depends which kind of expedition you're doing and the depth you're working. I had a boat with the decompression chamber inside, which is like a big luxury. Not every expedition boat will have that, but also it will not be necessary in many of the wrecks that we work because they are very shallow. It comes handy when you are diving, for instance, in the Subang wreck. We use it every day for people to take oxygen, for the divers to clean themselves, their bloodstream a little bit better. But the normal medical kit that every of our expedition ships had has been first aid. I mean, for accidents mainly. If you have to sew a wound, there is necessary to have antihistaminics. Many of the things in the sea will itch, will burn, you will be allergic reaction to it. So it is convenient to have antihistaminics, obviously painkillers. Apart from the first aid kit that everyone knows what it is, for accidents. But in the particular case of the sea and the diving, I would recommend to have antihistaminics on board, to have, painkillers, to have something for the motion sickness. There are medicines that you can take to put down a bit the effect of the motion sickness, so you will not have or will have less seasick. Also, the salts that you use to hydrate yourself.
Oh, like electrolytes, salts and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. That is also necessary because of the stomach sickness and food poisoning. That
I would say carbon pills. Carbon
pills, for instance. So yeah, it's pretty basic. The medical kit you have to take with you, unless you are working in a deep wreck and you would need the decompression chamber or an evacuation plan. You always need an evacuation plan. For evacuation plan for dive accidents. So, meaning that you will need to identify where is the nearest decompression chamber that you have access to, how to get there, how long it takes, if it's a country that you will need a helicopter or it could be done by land. So there are these considerations to take into account when preparing an expedition, but the medical kit is, as I said, pretty basic.
Will you be able to do more in-depth videos about proton magnetometers and how they work? I don't know what a proton magnetometer is, so now I'm curious as well.
Yeah, of course, I can make a video on proton magnetometers. I'm a little bit surprised by the question because, as everyone knows, well, not everyone knows, but we have explained there are two types of magnetometer, the proton and the cesium magnetometer. They work differently. I can make a video, if you like, on both, because the cesium magnetometer, the quantic one, is, let's say, a little bit more in use now. Proton magnetometers belong a little bit to the past. I'm still using them, but I use a lot of things from the past.
Yeah.
So yes, I can. So yes, I can make a video on both types of magnetometers. That's a good idea. It could be a little bit of a dense video, but I will try to make it fun and make it short, maybe, or right to the point. So everyone who is interested in magnetometers could have a very brief layout of how both work and which are the differences and why one operator prefers one type and the other one prefers the other. So yes, I will make a video on that.
One more video idea for us. The next question. Wouldn't the wood from the hull rotten faster under the ballast stones?
No, it's the other way around. The few cases that we have found of surviving wood structure from a very old wooden ship is because it has been covered by ballast stones. Ballast stones, they are so heavy and so dense, and they have all these spaces between them that they catch a lot the drifting sediment, making it very quickly like an anaerobic environment. That means that if it has no oxygen or very low level of oxygen in that layer, it will slow down the growth of sea life or bacteria and the animals that eat the wood and degrade the wood. So no, on the contrary, if ballast stones are covering, the original ballast stones are covering the part of a wood structure of a wreck, it has great possibilities of being in better condition than the wood that was exposed over the ballast, for instance. That one you almost never find. You almost never find it because it goes away with, and the light and the oxygen, these are the two elements that will make marine life boom. So that wood will be gone. So no, it's the other way around. The ballast stones will protect the wood structure and will stay in better condition than the rest.
Following question. Where can one see the artifacts you've recovered from shipwrecks?
Yeah, that depends on the shipwreck and from the country. Most of these shipwrecks, or in the different countries, the artifacts stay with the government and they are displayed in different museums. For instance, in the case of Cuba, there is a museum which is called the Museo Arqueológico del Castillo de la Real Fuerza, meaning that it's an archaeology museum in a fortress that is called the Fortress of the Real Fuerza in Havana, a beautiful place, and they have a beautiful display of the most important artifacts that were found in the wrecks around Cuba. In Cape Verde, you have the Núcleo Museológico de Praia, which is the museum in the city of Praia, in the capital, where they also display the most important artifacts that we found, and they have been found in Cape Verde in shipwrecks. In the case of Mozambique, you have the Museo da Marinha in the island of Mozambique, a very nice museum in the former house of the governor of the island that we helped rebuilding and preparing the exhibition rooms, the display rooms, and there are the artifacts from the Spadarte and from the San Jose, plenty of artifacts there. I think in every country, in every location, there would be a museum or a showroom to show the artifacts to the public. I mentioned these three cases because they are the ones that are much more familiar with me, but normally you will have the chance to see them in the museums, yes.
Do you mention those museums or where they can be seen in your reports?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Well, in some reports, yes. In the case of the Museo da Marinha in Ilha de Mozambique, I did in several reports because part of my job was to rebuild the museum.
Totally.
In the case of Cuba, for instance, we delivered the artifacts to the company. The company was a government-owned company. So they started being on display actually many years after we finished the excavation. So my reports didn't include that information. I didn't know where they will end up. In the case of Cape Verde as well, I mention it here and there where you can see them. But this is a little bit an information which is out of my hands.
No, fair enough. I was just asking in case we could direct the community to go check out for themselves instead of listing it one by one here in a video. But sadly, I tried, guys. Sadly, that's not fully possible.
Yeah, it's information that in the moment of writing the report, you most probably don't have yet.
100%, because I'm not in the industry as deep. I didn't know. Maybe had I known what's the process, I would be like, yeah, obviously not always do you have that information in advance.
Yeah.
But hey, guys, I tried. We'll find a way of communicating this maybe in our videos a little bit better.
Of course,
which I think we do, but
we can make even an episode because I have obviously been involved in all these museums quite deeply. So I have photos of them and I can explain where they are, what they have inside and how is to get there. We can make a short video about it with the museums and the wrecks that are represented in the display of that museum. Yes.
Awesome. We should, but let's save the brainstorming for our private time and not the episode. Let's move on to the next question. Is there international legislation on what to do with the finds in a shipwreck?
Oof. Yes, of course, there is. Let's say that today the most ample one is the UNESCO Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage. That is the one that dictates the ethics of how artifacts or underwater cultural heritage should be treated. That applies for, obviously there are countries signatories of that convention, plenty of them. There are countries which haven't joined the convention, so they have their own legislation. Even every country has their own legislation. The UNESCO Convention kind of englobes everything and try to make it as an international practice. But yes, there are international legislations which apply, some for international waters, and then you have the national waters of each country, which they will abide to the international legislation but make their own one, and the national one will be the strongest one, or will be the one that they follow more closely. So yes, there is a legislation. I will not talk about the legislation here for hours.
Good, smart.
It's very boring, sorry for the lawyers in the community.
Do access to the archives have an implicit cost? If yes, how expensive is that step?
Well, yes, it has a cost for a researcher to register him or herself in an archive to investigate the archives. Yes, it has a cost, but it's like
a subscription.
It's a membership which costs very little. It is not, I can't remember because I have it for the General Archive of India in Sevilla, which is an archive I use a lot. And the cost is like symbolic. I mean, it's a way that they will produce this little brevet with your photo and your number. But the higher cost you will have to go to the archive is actually going there if they are not in your city, because you have to go to the archive, spend there some time. Researching the archive is not something you can do in one afternoon. It will take you some time to get some results. So you will have to travel and to accommodate yourself in the city where the archive is. So that will be the directly related cost, not a fee or anything that you have to pay to the archive. No, that's irrelevant.
And last but not least, I have to wonder, whatever happened to the coins from Inés de Soto and the Fuxa? Were they all sent to the Cuban government?
Well, yes, but yeah, in the way that the question is made is like if we send it to the Cuban government. No, when we work in Cuba, the company I work with, Carisub, it was a government company, so they were not sent to the government. They were since the very beginning owned by the government. Yeah, the government, it was the company was government.
They were the ones to take it out, so there's nothing to give. It's their own.
Exactly. And yes, all these coins were saved first in the company and then in the bank and then have been put on display. Part of them, because there are plenty, part of them are on display in the Archaeological Museum of the La Fuerza Fortress in Havana, which I mentioned is a beautiful display. Whoever goes to Havana should visit that museum. And yes, all the coins, not only from the Fuxa and the Inés de Soto wrecks, but there were other wrecks that we excavated in Cuba that also had coins or other numismatic material and ingots and gold discs and silver bars. Yeah, all that is there. Yes.
And that's it. That's it from our subscribers, at least from these wave of questions that we got in this past year. Hopefully more will come, but that's all from my side.
Lovely. This was a fun episode to shoot because we are always very interested in the questions that you ask in the comment section or privately, because that really gives us the lead of which subjects are you more interested in and which kind of scenes, because sometimes I lost myself in certain subjects and I don't touch other subjects that you guys are interested about. So it's the way of knowing it is this one.
Totally. We might nerd out on the wrong topic, wrong in quotations. We might get really deep and really specific, or I might have really follow-up questions on something that might be interesting to me or to you or to both of us, but not to the audience that it's interested in this industry. Maybe they're like, okay, you lost too much time on the lifting bag the other day. I want to know more about X, Y, and Z. And this is how we get that information in from you guys directly. So if you ever find the opportunity or see something that you're really, really curious about and you think that we might be able to answer, feel free to leave it in the comments.
Yeah, leave it in the comment section, please. If you like the video, also leave it a like, share it with your friends. Whoever has a question, it doesn't matter how basic or simple could look to yourself. Ask the questions. They are not simple questions. Answers are the ones that have to be a little bit elaborated. So let's keep on diving.